Star Wars Legends boasts a diverse array of incredible Sith Lords. However, if they were integrated into the canon timeline, how would this impact our existing Sith Lords? The Sith in Star Wars are quite incredible, and to me they are one of the most interesting elements of Star Wars because they are generally really awesome. However, in Star Wars canon, although we do have Sith Lords, there aren't particularly that many of them. Right now, we really only have Palpatine as the master, and then we've had apprentices like Darth Vader and Count Dooku, and then Darth Maul for a certain period. And the master and the apprentice, they were considered Sith Lords. However, beyond those specific individuals, we haven't seen any dark side individuals on screen, like visually, that have been prominent enough to call themselves a Sith Lord. However, in Star Wars Legends, there are a wide range of Sith Lords with many different personalities, many different kind of like character traits that can be explored by us fans. So if you have delved a little bit into Star Wars Legends, you're probably quite aware about the fact that the Sith are quite prominent there, and they are plentiful in many different centuries of the timeline. However, in Star Wars canon, there are hardly any Sith Lords that we've seen on the big screen. Sure, we have had some mentions about some characters like Darth Plagueis and also even Revan for that matter in the Shadows of the Sith novel. But to me, that's not really enough. We have to actually see them on screen and make them into a more believable character in order for them to make a prominent stand in the Star Wars canon timeline. So when we keep all of this in mind, I wanted to forward the discussion about whether or not increasing the amount of Sith Lords in Star Wars canon would be a good idea for Star Wars. You see, this question has been kind of growing a little bit on the side for me because the Star Wars Sith Lords in Star Wars Legends, again, they are quite prominent, like they are extremely powerful, they have a lot to say, and in Star Wars canon, we really only have Palpatine and Darth Vader, who has gotten the most significant character building throughout the decades. And since Star Wars canon have such a lacking amount of Sith Lords compared to Star Wars Legends, many may naturally think that for Star Wars it would be great to implement more Sith Lords into canon so we can have more things to enjoy. But here comes my little worry about this. If we take into account the entire Skywalker saga as in the movie from 1 to 9, and then also we mix in the Clone Wars series and the more recent Bad Batch series, and technically even Star Wars Rebels, all of these elements have really tried to push Palpatine as the significant main evil in the galaxy, which obviously makes sense. They have spent a lot of time making Palpatine into this individual powerhouse that whenever his name is mentioned, you know a lot of destruction and death is right behind it. Like everything he does and everything he touches becomes kind of poisoned by his Sith narrative and his ideologies for how the galaxy should be. My point is that they have spent such an incredible amount of time building up Palpatine to become this one true evil in the galaxy. Like they even threw away the potential of Snoke simply to make Palpatine once again more powerful. Although he failed completely and it was very silly in my opinion, but the point still stands. They made him technically even more powerful than we've ever seen him before, and that was kind of the whole point because he was supposed to be the center of evil in the entire universe. And aside from what they did with Palpatine in the sequel trilogy, which I'm not particularly a fan of, I think they have done a really great job at building the character, especially when we bounce between him, Palpatine, and also Darth Vader, and a little bit with Count Dooku and Darth Maul as well. We see all of the relationships all bending their knee to Palpatine that kind of binds everything together for the Sith in Star Wars canon. So here's the thing, when we look at Star Wars Legends Sith Lords, considering there are so many of them, a lot of Star Wars fans have been asking, why don't we make the return of this particular Sith Lord, or why don't we return this particular Sith Lord, or this one? And personally, in my opinion, I have been one of those fans. I even have an upcoming video talking exactly about this, how we can return a specific Sith Lord in Star Wars canon, who is currently in Star Wars Legends. And these speculations and these kind of questions are very interesting because they can unfold in various ways and they can be implemented into the canon timeline in different ways as well. However, what I fear is that the second they start implementing these highly loved Sith Lords from Star Wars Legends, it could almost feel like they would kind of throw everything that they've made and done with Palpatine under the bridge in a way. Because if you are at least somewhat familiar with the Sith Lords in Star Wars Legends, you probably know that a lot of the Sith Lords are incredibly powerful, and they have done a lot of different things that we have never seen in Star Wars canon. For example, we can take a character like Darth Nihilus, who consumed entire planets and draining them from the living force simply to survive. Palpatine, he's incredibly powerful, but we've never seen him do anything like this in Star Wars canon. So if they take anything similar to what Darth Nihilus did, like consuming entire planets, and show that in a movie, I have a strong feeling that everyone will just look at Palpatine after that as just this one Sith Lord who managed to control the galaxy for a couple of decades, and that's pretty much it. And you can apply this same type of argument for many other Sith Lords in Star Wars Legends, because they are so incredibly varied, and so many of them have such a huge, raw connection to the dark side that's so different from what we've seen in canon with Palpatine, Darth Vader, Count Dooku, and Darth Maul. My worry of implementing more Legend Sith Lords into canon is that they have a possibility to overshadow Palpatine. And I don't really want that to happen, because I want Palpatine to be this significant, one powerful, menacing guy in the galaxy that made a lasting impact. I really want him to be known as this one Sith Lord that changed the galaxy forever. Another concern about this is that if they start bringing in a lot more Legend Sith Lords into canon, then I'll think it wouldn't be too far of a stretch to assume that a lot of people would start to expect more Sith Lords to be implemented. As in, they would implement a specific Sith Lord for Star Wars Legends, and he will show off his range of cool powers, and his story will be unfolded into the canon timeline, and then soon after, we will want another one, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one. And before we know it, we have so many Sith Lords to pick through that Palpatine just seems like this regular Sith Lord that kind of just survived for a long period of time and who made a lasting impact, obviously, on the galaxy, but compared to all of the other Sith Lords, he might not really be that cool anymore. It would also make things a lot more complicated, because you cannot introduce more Sith Lords without introducing new Sith powers. Otherwise, it's just going to be the same of the same of the same, and that's just going to be boring storytelling. So they have to introduce new elements to each Sith Lord, or at least the majority of the Sith Lords they introduce from Star Wars Legends. And that alone can make some problems for the Star Wars canon timeline, considering that right now we use Palpatine and Darth Vader as the baseline of what a really powerful Sith Lord can do. So if we introduce a lot of new powers that look a lot more impressive and seem way more powerful than what we've ever seen Palpatine do, then people might start questioning, why didn't Palpatine do this or that, or why didn't he survive that or this? The questions would just come one after the other, why Palpatine just didn't use the same powers as these other powerful Sith Lords that came before him, considering that Palpatine is supposed to be that one main evil in the galaxy, and that he is one of the most powerful Sith Lord we've ever seen in Star Wars canon. But I do hope I have explained myself in this worry good enough, because I do think that this is something that can present itself to be a problem if we ever introduce new Sith Lords to Star Wars. In essence, I worry a little bit that new Sith Lords in Star Wars will overshadow Palpatine and make all of his efforts in the canon timeline a lot less impactful for us viewers. Now, this is obviously just my little concern. It doesn't mean it will happen, I'm just saying that it could happen. And for all I know, they might introduce more Sith Lords later down the line and do it perfectly in a way that complements Palpatine. That is quite possible. They could introduce them in a way that makes Palpatine's story even better. There is a huge range of options here, but I did want to shine some light on the possibility of them actually making it worse for Palpatine's overall story in Star Wars canon. However, with all this said, I would still love a lot of ancient Sith Lords from Star Wars Legends to be explored in canon eventually. I think it would be incredibly interesting and awesome, and Disney Star Wars should spend their time using these old ancient Sith Lords in their stories in order to create something worth remembering and something that Star Wars fans will be like, yes, this is the good stuff. We want more. Like, this is great. You know? That's kind of the reaction I assume most of us Star Wars fans want when we watch something we like. So I'm not against Sith Lords from Star Wars Legends to return to Star Wars canon, but I do think it's important to keep in mind that they could drag down Palpatine's character in Star Wars. Maybe just by a little bit, or maybe by a lot. We don't really know, but there's a possibility there. But do let me know what you guys think about all of this, if you share the same opinion as mine, or if you think that adding new Sith Lords into Star Wars canon will not cause any problems for Palpatine's story. So, with that said, never forget, the Force is always with you.